Marco was born in a small fishing village where life was simple but heavy, where children grew up faster than their age because reality demanded it. At 17, he knew the sound of hunger better than he knew the sound of happiness. Every morning, he helped his father patch up the old fishing boat, and every afternoon he helped his mother sell vegetables at the roadside market. But at night, when the sky turned purple and the waves softened, he would walk to the shoreline and sing. He didn't know much about music theory or professional singing, but his voice carried something deeper, a kind of truth that only comes from living a life that has been more struggle than comfort. He sang to distract himself from worry, he sang to feel alive, he sang because it was the only thing that made him forget the cracked walls of their small home. Most people in the village had heard him sing, but they never thought of it as anything more than a hobby. Some kids bullied him, calling him the boy with nothing, because he wore the same torn slippers year after year. He would smile and pretend it didn't hurt, but at night he sang with even more emotion, as if releasing every pain through his voice. One evening, while he stood on a rock beside the ocean singing a love song he learned from an old radio, a foreign tourist walking along the beach stopped to listen. The tourist was stunned. This boy wasn't just singing, he was pouring his soul into every note. Without saying a word, the tourist recorded a short video and later posted it online. Days passed, and Marco continued his usual routine, unaware that his voice was quietly spreading across different countries, picking up thousands of views. His life was about to change, but he had no idea that a simple moment on the beach was the beginning of something bigger than all his struggles combined. When the village cafe owner approached him a week later and asked if he could sing at the cafe's weekend event, Marco froze. No one had ever offered him a chance to perform in front of people who weren't just passing by the shoreline. Nervous but excited, he agreed. On the night of the performance, he borrowed slippers from a friend and a shirt 2 sizes too big. He walked into the cafe feeling like an outsider, but when he stepped on the small wooden stage and held the old microphone, something changed inside him. He closed his eyes and began to sing. The room fell silent. Conversations stopped. Even the sound of clinking glasses faded. His voice filled the place with a warmth that made people forget everything else. When he finished, the audience clapped louder than he had ever heard in his life. He didn't know that the cafe owner had shared the performance on social media, and it reached a local talent scout who was searching for raw, undiscovered voices. That same night, Marco received a message from the scout inviting him to audition for a major show in Manila. He stared at the message in disbelief. Manila felt like another world, far away and expensive. He had no money for bus fare, no hotel, no proper clothes. He tried to brush the thought aside, telling himself it was impossible. But word spread quickly through the village, and something unbelievable happened. Neighbors, fishermen, mothers, students, everyone who had seen him grow up, came together and collected small donations. Some gave coins, some gave bills, some offered food for the trip. They told him, "Go and show them what you can do." Standing in front of his community with tears in his eyes, Marco realized that even though he had grown up with nothing, he had something priceless all along. People who believed in him. Marco arrived in Manila feeling like he had stepped into another universe. The tall buildings made him crane his neck just to see the sky, and the non-stop noise of cars and voices felt overwhelming compared to the quiet rhythm of his village. He held his small backpack tightly against his chest as he followed the signs to the audition hall. Everywhere he looked, contestants wore stylish clothes, new sneakers, and expensive accessories. Some had personal coaches, some warmed up with high-tech ear monitors, and some recorded TikTok videos with ring lights. Marco stood in the corner wearing his simple shirt and the same borrowed slippers from home. He could hear whispers from a few contestants who wondered who the provincial boy was. The insecurity stung, but he remembered the faces of his village and the coins and bills they gathered to send him here. That memory pushed him to stay strong. When his number was finally called, Marco felt his hands shaking. He stepped into a brightly lit room with 3 judges sitting behind a long desk. One of them looked at his clothes and raised an eyebrow, as if already doubting him. Marco took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to sing. His voice started softly but grew with every second, carrying a raw and emotional tone that made the judges straighten in their chairs. He wasn't just singing lyrics, he was telling the story of every sacrifice, every hunger-filled night, every dream he thought he would never reach. When he finished, the room fell silent before erupting into applause. All three judges stood, giving him a rare standing ovation. One judge said his voice felt like a story wrapped in melody. Another said he was the reason shows like this exist. Marco walked out shocked, trying to process what had just happened. By the next morning, clips of his audition had gone viral online. Millions watched a boy in worn clothes sing with the power of someone who had lived a lifetime. People across different countries began sharing his video with captions like, "The voice from nowhere," and "The boy who sings with truth." But with sudden attention came jealousy. One contestant, someone who had mocked Marco earlier, began spreading rumors that Marco's story was fake and exaggerated. Some viewers believed it, some didn't, and the negativity started affecting Marco's confidence. For the first time, he wondered if he really belonged on that stage or if he was just a lucky accident. As rehearsals for the semi-finals began, Marco felt pressure heavier than anything he had carried before. Every wrong note felt like a failure. Every negative comment replayed in his mind. One afternoon, his coach found him sitting alone backstage, staring at the floor. The coach sat beside him and said, "Greatness never grows in comfort. Pain shapes the strongest voices." Those words stayed with Marco. He went back to practice with new determination, singing until his voice cracked and his eyes burned from exhaustion. When the night of the semi-finals arrived, Marco chose a song dedicated to his family. He thought of his father waking up before sunrise to fish, his mother counting coins to buy rice, and the entire village standing behind him. As he walked onto the stage, the lights felt brighter, the audience louder, and his heart beat faster than ever. The music started, and he let go. He sang with every ounce of emotion inside him, letting his voice rise and break and heal within the same breath. Midway through the song, tears filled his eyes, but he kept going. The audience stood long before he reached the final note. When he finished, the judges were visibly moved. One said it was the most honest performance they had seen all season. By the end of the night, Marco wasn't just another contestant, he was the frontrunner. The boy with nothing had become the boy the world couldn't stop watching. As the finals approached, pressure wrapped around Marco like a tight rope. Reporters wanted interviews, fans flooded his messages, and the show producers constantly reminded him that this performance could change his life forever. But while everyone talked about the big night, something heartbreaking happened back home. During an early morning fishing trip, his father slipped on the wet boat deck, injuring his leg badly. With no money for proper treatment and no one else to support the family, Marco felt his world collapse. He received the call from his mother while sitting alone in his dressing room, surrounded by cables, lights, and mirrors that didn't feel like they belonged to him. He listened to her voice shake as she explained what happened, and tears rolled silently down his face. His first instinct was simple: quit the show, go home, and take care of his family. Fame suddenly felt meaningless. But his mother, who had always been quiet and soft-spoken, became firm for the first time. She told him that leaving now would break everything he and the whole village had worked for. She said, "If you come home now, your father will feel guilty for stopping your dreams. Win for all of us, Anik. Win for him." Her words hit him harder than any judge's comment ever had. After the call ended, Marco sat still for a long time, replaying every moment of his journey. He remembered the villagers collecting coins, the long bus ride to Manila, the judges standing for him, and his father proudly telling neighbors that his son could sing better than the radio. Slowly, strength returned to his heart. He wiped his tears, stood up, and told himself he would sing like his family's survival depended on it, because in many ways, it did. On the night of the final performance, the studio buzzed with excitement. Contestants rehearsed their last-minute warm-ups, camera crews rushed across the stage, and audience members held signs with different names. Marco stood backstage gripping the microphone tightly, whispering a prayer for his father. When the announcer called his name, a wave of cheers echoed through the room. He stepped into the spotlight, feeling the heat of the lights on his face, and heard the first notes of the song he chose, a powerful ballad about fighting through darkness and rising again. He didn't just sing, he released everything he had been holding inside. Every fear, every memory, every night singing by the ocean poured out of him. The audience went silent, completely drawn into his voice. By the time he hit the last note, the entire studio erupted into applause and stood on their feet, chanting his name louder than ever before. The judges praised him, calling it a world-class, unforgettable performance that came from the soul. Marco felt a rush of relief and hope, knowing he had truly given everything. When the winner was finally announced, time seemed to slow. The host opened the envelope, smiled at the crowd, and called Marco's name. For a moment, he didn't move. Then the reality hit him. He covered his face as confetti rained down, and the other contestants hugged him. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he realized the boy who used to sing to the ocean now stood on one of the biggest stages in the country. After the show ended, agents from different countries contacted him, offering opportunities he never imagined. TV shows wanted him. Music companies wanted to sign him. He was no longer just a contestant, he was a rising global star. But Marco didn't let success blind him. The first thing he did was return to his village. The moment he stepped off the jeepney, children ran toward him, neighbors clapped, and his mother hugged him so tightly he couldn't breathe. He helped pay for his father's treatment, rebuilt old fishing boats, donated to the local school, and set up scholarships for other kids with big dreams and empty pockets. People called him a superstar, but Marco always shook his head and said the same thing: "I started with nothing, but I was never poor. I had music, I had faith, and I had people who believed in me."